Okay, so let's get started. Okay, everyone, good morning. Thank you for joining the US OSS Partner Community Call. Today we have Nina Sui to talk about App Modernization Campaign. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Nina, whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you, Yoshika, for the introduction. And we also have Ryan McIntyre here from Microsoft.
You'll see on the left a device tree.
So a quick introduction, if I may. As Yoshika said, I'm Nina Sui. I am in the U.S. Cloud and Enterprise Marketing and Operation team here at Microsoft. One of the campaigns that I've been building for the past several months is on application modernization. So what I'd like to go through with you on today's call is give you a little bit of background context on why we are putting together this campaign, what content and collateral are available for partners like yourself, and walk you through sort of the customer journey for the customer, what to expect, and what are some offers and resources we have for you. So I'm going to advance to the next slide. And this is a build slide, so I'm going to just go ahead and build it out. So if I take a step back and we think about overall the digital transformation story that we tell customers, digital transformation is about how do customers better engage their end customer, whether it's staying more connected or whether it's being able to grab the feedback that customers have and incorporating it into their product or services. Digital transformation is also about transforming a product, optimizing operations, and enabling their employees to act quickly, develop products and services in an iterative, hypothesis-driven model. All of that different pillars of digital transformation is really at the center, enabled by modern application. And some of the reasons why you might see customers looking to modernize could be alongside of 5 buckets. First may be speed and agility. They want to release software faster. They want to be able to respond to customer insight and feedback faster. The second reason might be scale. They're looking to, for example, if you know you're going to have a spike in traffic on your website at a certain point of time, you want to be able to scale and reach your end customer effectively. The third might be security. Nowadays, what we hear from customer is that I think they're more comfortable with the cloud in a sense that they're not seeing cloud as, gosh, is it secure? But more so, if I don't put things onto the cloud, eventually, am I going to have a security risk? Fourth is innovation. So modernizing their application means maybe being able to innovate their app to, for example, have new features like an internal chatbot to be able to better share information in an effective way. And then lastly, it's also about changing skills. A lot of developers are learning about new technology, new ways of doing things. And so some of these legacy internal applications need to also change so that it is more compatible to the skill force. So knowing all of those reasons why maybe a customer would want to modernize, then this slide kind of talks to the how piece. If you look at from left to right, this goes along with the Gartner's 5R concept, where a lift and shift, a rehost may just be having something on-premise into IaaS. But then if you're really looking to take advantage of platform as a service and a lot of the goodness and capabilities of the cloud, then you would consider application modernization in terms of refactor, re-architect, or rebuild. And then lastly, for companies that are looking to create a born in the cloud service application business model, then software as a service would be where they're at. But for the context of this conversation as well as the campaign, we're going to focus on that middle part for application modernization. If you look at the bottom figures there, what we're trying to say here is whether you use containers or PaaS, serverless, it really depends on where the customer is comfortable heading. It's not necessarily something where if you imagine this is a train, it's not necessarily that you have to stop by each stop, start with the IaaS, then start with container, then start with PaaS. Really, it's about understanding the customer's strategy, business goals, how ready they are, and offering them a solution that fits specifically for their situation. So at the cusp of this campaign is basically giving partners like yourself a set of really rich bill of material to help you at the end of the day go on a customer's site and say, hey, let's do a 3 to 5 day on-site assessment. And it could be portions of it could be virtual as well, because I hear feedback about, well, does it have to be on-site, because sometimes our customers are so geo-distributed and it doesn't really make sense. So the end goal is to create a program where partners, you can offer your customer a on-site application assessment. You'll look at their application portfolio, and sometimes customers might have, say, 5 applications they have in mind that they want to assess, or sometimes they might have just one that they really want to modernize. What I'll show you later in this presentation is content and resources that'll help you deliver that 3 to 5 day assessment with the end goal of helping the customer identify which of these 5 R's would make sense for them at this moment for their application, and then and with the end goal of, after the assessment, the customer feels, gosh, I see the possibility. This makes sense. I want to go big. Partner, since I've been already working with you, would you like to help me really complete the project? So I'll go into that in a little bit as well. The next slide here, the intent of this slide is to show you that when you're talking to a customer, one company, there are many, many internal apps. And although majority of what I'll be saying is related to internal applications, most of it also apply to an external application. So on the left-hand boxes, what you'll see, this is basically saying that most applications internally for a customer fall into a few buckets. So it could be a system of record. So whether it's in finance, a record of sales numbers, HR, those are all examples of applications that keep data and keep information. And then you've got a system of differentiation where it's enabling that unique processes or industry capabilities. And then you have systems of innovation where it's what are applications that allow for new business opportunity that kind of disrupts the status quo. And what you see on the right-hand side, that spin wheel, is to help jog maybe your memory or a customer site, because when you ask, hey, are there internal applications that are great candidates to modernize? And if a customer says, no, I don't have any, well, how about let's dig into some of these topics. How are your payroll? How is your IT help desk? So there's many different types of internal applications that a customer could consider. In fact, we had a Microsoft internal training session back in October, and we posed the question to our internal sellers, how many internal applications do you think your customer have? And folks raised their hand. We said, how many say more than 500? How many say more than 1,000? And one seller raised their hand on one of their customer has more than 5,000 internal applications. So the main takeaway from this slide is there are opportunities, and it's about uncovering them, having the conversation with the customer, and sharing with them sort of what is possible. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the customer journey. And before I go through this slide, because it's quite a handful, I just wanted to pause and see if there's been any questions so far.
Hey, Nina, the only question we have so far is if they can get a copy of the presentation. I am asking Sarah, but I think they should be able to.
Yeah, the presentation is definitely available and shareable to this audience, and Yashika and I can work with Sarah to see what's the best way, what's the usual way that it gets delivered to you.
I think it will be posted on the Yammer group after the call with the recording, so you'll be able to get a copy.
Fantastic. Thanks. So I'm going to walk through this busy slide from left to right. When thinking about engaging with a application assessment with a customer, first it's about build an application inventory. So you can use the slide before that. You can if you have your own method of doing so, but really that's just about a conversation with the customer to uncover what are maybe what do they have in mind, and the intent is to whittle down into, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 applications from that bigger pool to actually conduct a thorough assessment on. The partner-led application assessment, that piece then, and I will get to the BOM material to show you the resources that you have to do that. But as you're doing the application assessment, that's where you kind of see a fork in the road. Are you moving an existing application to Azure, or is the customer looking to build a brand new app, or extending an existing app feature? And if they're moving an existing app to Azure, then you can, doesn't matter if the app is on premise at the moment, or if the app is already on IaaS, using VMs, you still can, think of option A and B as two ways to modernize the application itself. So not talking about the infrastructure, but the application, the code itself. So option A is a quote lift and shift of monolithic apps to modern platforms. So this is where, if the customer feels, gosh, I don't want to rip and replace, I don't want to do a whole bunch of rewrite, then this is where you can consider, does containers make sense, where we can put the application onto a container and then put that onto Azure and you have little to no code rewrite, and later on, as next steps, when you're ready, customer, then we can look at maybe breaking it down and rewriting certain pieces of it, breaking the monolithic app into smaller chunks, which is option B, where you are looking to refactor, re-architect, or rebuild the application. And this is where certain architectures like microservices might come into play, where the good thing about breaking down these large monolithic apps is that, hey, if one piece of the application isn't working well or it needs to be updated, then you can just work on that specific piece without having to interfere with the larger application itself. Serverless is something that we know is gaining lots of interest and traction among developers, because eventually developers just really want to get their code and application working. The less friction there are, the better, the more control they have. So serverless is another option, but it's definitely a little bit more advanced. And then going to option C, where we're talking about maybe the customer wants to build a mobile app. Great, we have lots of collateral and expertise here at Microsoft to help you when it comes to writing cross-platform mobile applications, specifically in C#, leveraging some of the Xamarin tools, or maybe they want to build a chatbot. We also have programs in place to invite customers to a bot in a day workshop where they get to really experiment and play around with that. At the end of this assessment, if you look at the deliverables box, what we want to avoid is having just a paper report back to the customer saying, all right, here's the apps that we looked at, this is the roadmap, here's what you should do. We want to avoid just having it be like a paper report, because then the customer might think, great, love this initial assessment, let me go and now conduct it myself in-house, or go hire someone else. So we're really looking for some kind of stickiness in that engagement, so that ultimately the customer wants to sign on, whether it's to give you services revenue to help them complete it, or whether you have products that will help them. So when doing these assessments, think about, are there ways that you could, in a simple manner, provide a production-like pilot? Maybe it's not the entire app, because that's difficult to do in a short amount of time, but could it be a feature, or could it be a line of code? So really encourage you to think about, how could you use this time to let it be actionable and hands-on for the customer, maybe even using their Azure subscription, so that they've got something working in Azure, and they feel like, gosh, we already made the first step, let's go ahead and finish that. Other things to consider for the deliverable is teaching customers how to fish, so to speak, when it comes to understanding their Azure consumption, because of course they want to know, is this going to save me money in the long term, and how should I think about that? So teaching them how to use the Azure calculator, how to think about the spend, will be an important aspect of the deliverable. You'll definitely think about the risk areas and complexities as part of your assessment, and also of high-level roadmap for next steps. And I know some of you may think that it really differs depending on the customer and depending on the app, and that's completely true. There's no one size fits all. So the ask is you understand the nature of this campaign, the goal, and the details of how, like, for example, how do you actually get to that production pilot, or what exactly is the customer looking at? That then we want to give a little bit of flexibility to the partners so that you're able to offer in the time that you have with the customer, the right amount, set the right expectation, and result. I'm going to talk a little bit about the items you see on the very bottom of the slide. Think of these as tools that are available to help you with conducting the assessment. So some of you may have heard about Movir. That's that is a tool to help look at the more from the infrastructure side. It will do a scan and show you some recommendations from more of an infrastructure to cloud perspective. What is highlighted in red, Unified Cloud Pilot, sponsored application scans. I want to really highlight this because my team has pre-purchased several licenses for Cloud Pilot, and we're looking to offer it to partners who would like to use it as part of their assessment. And what Cloud Pilot is, it's a software that can scan the source code of a customer's application as well as the databases that are dependent on it, and it'll spit out some recommendations on, is container the right path, or is it Azure Pass or others, and it'll tell you what are the lines of codes that need to be changed, and it'll also help with the actual migration onto Azure. So a really cool, really neat tool. If you are interested in that, happy to connect you with the folks at Unified Cloud, which is the company that has this tool, Cloud Pilot, and they are more than happy to onboard you, show you demos, and really be your quote co-pilot in delivering this tool, this assessment for your customer, because of course they want you to be successful in using their tool, and they want customers to be happy with the learnings and insights that they get. So these are so kind of for your action, things to take away, is think about identifying customers to engage in the app modernization discussion. From my end, I've been also thinking about target accounts, target lists, based on some of the propensity and insights that I'm able to grab here from the Microsoft side. So if you're open to partnering together on target customers, more than happy to, for example, connect with you and identify what are your target customers, which ones are mine, and let's look at the overlap and get the sales team involved and really be targeted in offering these assessments. You'll get this slide, so there are leverage the tools and resources available. So if you click on the tools and resources available, it's going to take you to a point drive that has all the campaign material, which I'll show you in the next slide. Start assessing customers' apps with the App Cloud Readiness Assessment templates. So that's a survey version of asking about the customer's application, understanding which of the 5 R's would be most aligned. So I'll show you that in a few moments. And then if any of you partners are part of, have access to PI, which stands for Partner Investment Engine, and if you are part of the Azure Everywhere program, then you can also use those programs to request funding to offset some of the efforts that you would be investing in during the assessment. And if you have any questions, feel free to email the msusappdev@microsoft.com email address. That'll go directly to myself and a few of my teammates. So I'm going to share my desktop soon and show you a view of what does this point drive look like and what are the campaign bill of material. And here I'll pause again to see if there's any questions so far.
Hey, there's no questions. You're doing good.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so let me go ahead and try to share my desktop. And can you confirm that you can see what I'm sharing on the event builder window?
Yes, let me check.
Okay, great.
It's loading, and yeah, you're good.
Okay, fantastic. So, folks, when you click on the tools and resources link, it brings you to a point drive. For those of you that have heard of point drive for the first time today, what it is it's a feature of LinkedIn, and it allows me to curate content, what they call so this is my presentation, and I basically curated these content as a way to share it with you rather than emailing it, for example. And the benefit from my end, so if you're ever considering using Point Drive as a way for you to share content with your internal or external stakeholders, the nice thing about the Point Drive is that I will be able to see who has looked at what collateral. I even have a sense of how many pages they've gone through. So it helps me understand what content is actually valuable and people are using it, and maybe which content not so much. So this is content that's curated specifically for you, for the partners. I won't click through every single one of these. Some of them I'll go into more detail. But here you have a Start Here document. And this Start Here document is 5 pages. And it just goes over what are all of the collateral and assets for you and when you might use it. So it's just an overall summary. And then you have a one-pager here, which is the campaign messaging and positioning. So here it'll have what's the elevator pitch, what might be the potential Azure services that would be useful for an application modernization project, and aligning the messaging along the 4 pillars of digital transformation: engage your customer, enable your employees, transform your product, optimize your operation. So it's a really good document to just get grounded and see how we're thinking about starting that conversation. And then we also have a customer conversation guide. This is another one-pager where we've curated a few questions on what are those probing questions that you can ask to initiate the conversation, and it's divided by the audience role. So depending on if you're talking to a business decision maker, IT decision maker, line of business owner, or developer, we have different questions there. And I do want to shout out and thank the partners who I've spoken to in the past and collected some of their insights. So this is a collective effort and learning here. We have a short 11-page customer pitch deck that we've gotten approval internally here from Microsoft that partners are able to use. And I'll show you what that pitch deck looks like here. So you'll see it starts out with the 4 pillars of digital transformation. It talks about the widening divide between businesses and IT. What are some of the challenges we're hearing from customers? A few examples. You see here again the journey to the cloud slide that I showed you earlier. So it's actually part of the customer presentation. This slide is interesting because it's showing you, you can start at any stage, and it's a double click on some of those 5 R's and what are the drivers. This is an interesting slide here because it shows, all right, based on your objective, what might be some of your strategy as well as things to consider. So this slide here should be jogging the customer's thought process and thinking about, gosh, I wonder what is the right path, which is why the call to action here is let's come in, let me as a partner come in and help you decide that. The slide is about assessing your portfolio. This slide talks about Microsoft IT's own cloud approach, and then here's where you pitch to the customer as a next step. Let's assess your application strategy and see what we can move to the cloud. So that's the pitch deck there. Next, you have a one pager that just talks about the App Modernization Assessment, and think of this as a leave behind. So if you want to print some out at an event, or if you want to share it with a customer as an email attachment, it just gives a little bit more detail on the offering. We have a sample customer commitment agreement, and this document completely here optional for you to use. In fact, everything here is optional for you to use. Say if you're a partner that's very mature in your application modernization offering, then these may just be appendix to what you already have, or perhaps if you're a partner that's looking to build expertise around here, or maybe to scale and programatize it, then these resources might be very helpful. So think of it as it's here for you if it's helpful. If you want to change it, whatnot, totally feel free to, because these are all basically templates. But what this customer agreement does is it really details out for the customer, here's what you can expect on day 1, day 2, day 3, who are the people from the customer side that will be your main point of contact, what's their name, email. So it's a good document to really set the stage for what to expect on both sides. There's a really good App Modernization Assessment how-to guide. This is about 6 pages, and it really walks through all the areas that you may want to consider. It's written by a very knowledgeable partner. So definitely take a look at that. We also have a couple of final deliverable templates for you. So one of them is a PowerPoint, so you could insert your findings, present it to the customer if that's part of the agreement. And we also have a Word document that you can put in your findings as well. So think of the PowerPoint as just a more presentation-friendly version of the Word document. And lastly, we have a couple of .oft outreach email templates, and I'll show you what that look like. So we've even created, it looks like I need to, oh wait, I think I know, I can pull it up from here. Bear with me for a second. So we've created 2 different types of email templates that you can use right off the bat, and I'm gonna expand this so you can see better. So this is one of the 2 creative. This one goes with more of a don't wait for it to break, modernize your legacy app with cloud technology, and you can see you can update it with your own signature at the end. Of course, you probably want to take out the Microsoft footer about privacy, etc., because you may have your own. But this email template is ready for you to use to initiate that conversation. And here it's saying, let's schedule an application assessment. The second one I'll show you. This is the second email template. The content is exactly the same. It's just the look and feel and the creative that's a little bit different. So this one is, when was the last time you dusted back here? Modernize your legacy apps for fresh innovation. So kind of taking advantage of this spring cleaning now that we're entering the springtime. And just saying this before. So lastly, the last item is the app assessment survey and scoring guide. Now, if you actually click on this, it's going to be a PowerPoint, and the reason why I'm not going to include that here in Point Drive is because anybody that has Point Drive basically could access it. So I'm actually going to host the survey on the Yammer group, and that way at least there's a little bit of authentication to make sure that that it's Microsoft partners that are able to access it. So this is the app assessment survey that I wanted to show you. Think of this survey as something that you can either give your customer and they can fill it out themselves as homework and give back to you, or as part of your maybe pre-assessment or your first step of the assessment, you walk through these questions with your customer. The way that this Excel sheet is conducted is that all these questions apply to one application. So if you were to do this for multiple, then you would start off a fresh Excel survey and do a new one. So you'll see some of these questions. It'll go through the basics. What's the application name, etc. Want to understand the business drivers. Is the business critical? Are there blockers? There are several questions around the architecture, understanding the high-level architecture, the complexity. Several questions here about the deployment. If you scroll down here, there's some questions about security, operations, and technology. So there's about 70 questions or so. So not overly taxing, but still fairly involved and deep. There's a column on the explanation suggestion, so you know why that question matters and what answers might indicate. And what I'm showing you here is a sample. So in the answer column, we're using a sample purchasing web portal. So these answers have already been filled in to show you an example of the output. So here then you'll see the purchasing web portal. It's an application used by the purchasing department to handle proposals. For line of business, it's within the procurement, finance, and warehouse department. And you'll see this diagram here where it's going to show, based on the answers that the customer provided, refactor or architect might be the best approach. And then when you look at some of those questions around risk factors and complexities, it looks like it's fairly low risk, but high complexity. So you use this as a tool. Sometimes you might be able to use this Excel sheet first, and then use the Cloud Pilot license, that tool, to conduct the actual scan of the application in the source code as a next step. So I think, let's go back to the point drive. So I've gone through all of the content I wanted to share with you. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's any questions. And while we're waiting for questions, Yashika, if you want to bring back the PowerPoint.
Okay. There's no questions. If someone has any questions, please post them on the chat window. Up here. Okay. One sec. I think it's sharing. Do you guys see it? Oh, it's loading still.
For me, it's loading. And I guess just one comment on the app assessment and the Cloud Pilot license. We do have partners that are in the middle of being onboarded, using it for existing customer projects and engagements. So I really urge you to, if that's something you're interested. I have a finite quantity of it, so to please let me know, and we can work together to get you set up on that.
There's one question. Could you kindly elaborate more on Unify Cloud Pilot?
Yep. What I would suggest, if that person can just shoot an email over, I can share with you the relevant videos getting started, so you can learn more about it, and I can also connect you with the folks at Unify Cloud who are more than happy to do demo. But I've seen a demo of it, and really what it does is you select the application you want to scan. It'll show what are the databases that are related to it, and it scans fairly quickly, and it tells you, it goes through very detailed reporting on here's what we found. What would it mean if you were to use containers? What might be the risk? What would it mean if you were to move forward with Azure Platform as a Service or app service? And there's option where then you can say, okay, I want to choose, for example, this container option, and then it'll help migrate that application to the cloud using the container, but it'll also tell you, because it's scanning the source codes, like what are the areas that need to be changed in order for this to work effectively. So I know that's very, very high level, and to do it justice, really encourage you to let me know that you're interested in learning more, and can connect you with the experts and the folks who can explain it 1,000 times better than I can.
Okay. I think those were all the questions. Thank you so much, Nina. Is there anything else you would like to add, or?
No, thank you, Ishika, for the time. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll also give you my direct email if you have questions that you wanted to follow up on. So you can reach me at nina.sui@microsoft.com. So that's nina.sui@microsoft.com. And I'll hand it back over to you, Yoshika.
Okay, thank you guys. This is information about all our partner links. So if you guys have any questions or need resources, this slide will have every link. These are our all the community calls that we have within OCP. And that's when every month those are the dates of when each call is. And this is about our US OSS page community. If you have any questions, you're able to post on Yammer or join this call. And there's the blog link. And everyone, if you haven't signed up for Microsoft Inspire, would like to do so, please register today. Thank you so much, guys, for attending, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, Nina.
Thanks, Yoshika. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Ryan, for sticking on. I feel like I'm on a